What is going on, guys and girls? Welcome back to TV and Me. I'm of course Kevin, and I think it's time for that review for Season 7, Episode 1. So where do we begin such a review? I should probably start by stating the obvious, and you probably saw from my reaction that this episode absolutely devastated me. It was unreal. It destroyed me emotionally. Like, every beat of that episode was just a build-up of emotion, just getting worse and worse and worse, till at the end there, you know, and I said it to my patrons, and no, I think I said it on Twitter actually, that the end image of them showing the video of everyone happy around a table, with Glenn at the head of that table, with, you know, his child on his lap, that to me felt like an emotional low blow, just because of everything that had preceded it. And I tell you what, with a bit of hindsight and a bit of time to think on it, that was an absolutely amazing move by them. I'm really happy they did that, mainly because it in fact took that image out of my head. The image of Glenn with his head caved in, with his eye bulging out, that horrible image I had stuck in my head. Instead of that, I had that end image of everyone happy around the table eating together, and Glenn happy with his son on his lap. It was absolutely magical, and I'm glad they finished with that. That was only the end of the episode though, and preceding that was a whole lot of chaos and misery. And what I really, you know, with hindsight again, what I really enjoyed about this episode was the way it was shot and the way it was filmed, because it very much was us as the viewer sitting in Rick's shoes. The whole episode just followed Rick, you know, from him looking down the line of the people next to him, looking left and right, and it was the camera view moving. Or when we left the rest of the group and we went on that journey with Negan in the camper van, you know, we followed him. We didn't visit back the people at the what were being held hostage. We always stayed with Rick. And if we did go back, it was a memory. And that was a memory through Rick's eyes, because before we saw everything, we saw it focus on his face and then zoom in on him, and we was seeing what he was remembering. And I really enjoyed that they did that, mainly because we was in Rick's POV. We got to see what his thought process was. We got to see how Negan systematically broke him down as a person, broke him down as the strong leader we know he is. Starting off with Abraham, of course, which I should talk about. Abraham going was devastating. It really was. I didn't expect it to be him, but the one thing I've got to say about Abraham's death, even though it upset me, I really loved that Abraham stayed true to his character in his final moments. Even when he got smacked over the head, his last words were, "Suck my nuts." Typical Abraham. He stuck to his personality. He didn't change who he was. He wasn't frightened. He was the hardened survivor we know he was, and he didn't break. And you know, Negan beat him to death, which was horrific to see. And I can't believe they actually focused in on all his mushed brains as well. I didn't think they'd show that, but you know, they did, and that added to, you know, the tension of the episode. Again, seeing it through Rick's eyes, him staring and seeing all that stuff was just horrific. And then we had the Glenn death. The death that affected me the most. I have to be honest about it, and you probably know that from my reaction in that video, and also because you saw how I acted when I thought he died before. I was really upset about it. But having to go through that again, and this time there being no doubt. There was absolutely no doubt. We saw in those images, oh, they were so bad, those images. Like when his head was caved in, like I said, and his eye bulging out. And that moment when Glenn said, "Maggie, I will find you." How I talk about Abraham sticking to who he was, his character, Glenn did the exact same. He stuck to his character. The one thing he cares about more than anything in this world is Maggie. And with his last words, with him struggling to get him out, because, you know, the amount of brain damage he must have had, just insane. And he still managed to find the ability to get the words out, "Maggie, I'll find you," which I thought was absolutely beautiful. Which I took as well to mean that he'll find her after death. So when Maggie dies, if she dies, he'll find her in the afterlife. And I thought that was really beautiful and really romantic. Well, romantic's probably not the right word considering his eye was bulging out of his head, like I say. But you know what I mean. It was a really nice moment. And as devastating as it was to see Glenn go, it was also devastating to see Maggie's response to it. Especially at the end there, where she seemed shut off from the whole thing. And not surprisingly, the amount of trauma they all went through. And the fact that Maggie's had to see her father beheaded, she was absolutely helpless with that as well. Seeing Glenn get his head caved in, she was absolutely helpless with that. And, her sister dying, even though she wasn't there, she didn't see it and she didn't witness it. She was still, away, so she probably felt helpless. And also, she's probably losing the baby because we know she's having complications and she's got to get to the hilltop. And if she loses the baby as well, I really don't know how Maggie is going to survive. I can't see how anyone can recover from that as a human being. That much loss, that much trauma. And if somehow she does pull through it, it's because of who she is, how hard she is, how much of a survivor she is, and how much she's gone through already. But I'm really worried for Maggie, and I just hope this baby survives, because if the baby doesn't survive, it's going to hurt me, but I can't even imagine the trauma Maggie would go through. Circling back round to Rick though, I wanted to say, my main point at the beginning of this was how the episode was filmed. They did it through Rick's eyes, and we saw how he was mentally broke down, Even after the trip, even after Glenn and Abraham had been killed, he still had that look in his eyes. Negan said, "I want to change the way you look at me," because Rick was still defiant. He still had that vendetta. He hadn't submitted. He still wanted to kill him. And it was showing through his eyes. And, Negan gave him another chance. And, another thing he kept doing as well was he kept belittling Rick. Like when he wiped the blade on his shoulder, the hatchet on his shoulder, wiped the blood off. And also when he said to Rick, "You answer when you're spoken to." He kept talking down to him. He kept, there was prolonged staring into his eyes, trying to intimidate him, trying to break him. And Rick was holding strong, but there was that one moment, a moment that again ripped my heart out, as much as Abraham, as much as the Glenn death, was the moment when there was that realisation from me and also Rick that Negan was going to make Rick cut off his own son's arm in order to save the lives of everyone around him. And you could see, just from the shaking in his voice and, just the acting performance by Andrew Lincoln, it was absolutely incredible. You could just sense the panic and the helplessness and, not wanting to do what he had to do. And, in that moment, Cole said to him, It's okay, Dad, just do it." And that was the permission Rick needed. Because if Cole hadn't given that permission, even though everybody had a gun to the back of their head, I don't know if they would have done it. I really don't know. I mean, I think it's up in the air because he was really struggling. But you could see when Cole said those words to him, something clicked. And he knew he could do it in that moment. But if Carl had been crying and screaming in that moment, asking him not to do it, or even just staring at him, not saying anything, I feel like somebody else would have died before Rick would have done it, because it's his son after all, and he doesn't want to cause harm to his son. But man, the way Negan broke him down, the way Negan just kept belittling him, it really was a lesson. A horrible lesson, but a lesson in how to break a human being. And I've got to admit, he did it like a pro. Saying that though, don't get it wrong, I really despise the Negan character now. I said it previously in one of my other reviews that he comes across as in control, but there is something really, really broken and sinister behind that man. Even though he might see what he's doing as justice, you can do justice without it being caving someone's head in. And, waving the bat in front of someone's face, their best friend's face, saying, "Look, this is your friend's brains on this bat," and then going straight back to beating their head in. He's a broken man, but a broken man that's in control. And that's a scary combination when you think about it, because if you got an insane person, you always can predict that they're going to do something crazy. But with Negan, he could come across as sincere, and you could feel like he is being sincere, but in actual fact, he's just playing games, because that's something he loved to do in this episode as well. He loves playing games, obviously. That's all he did in the 2 episodes we watched this weekend. The first one, leading Rick down different paths, shutting him off, threatening him, scaring him, intimidating him. And then again he played games with a baseball bat, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, taking Rick off, chucking the hatchet on the roof of the camper van. It's all games. And he's some sort of sadistic mother fucker. Fuck it, I'm going to say it. I just swore twice, but hey ho. But he's a damaged man. And it's really scary that he's that damaged, yet he's in control. And that scares me for the future, because I feel like going forward, he's going to play more games with our characters, and he's going to do stuff which is really sick and really twisted, and he's going to make me hate him even more. Moving away from Negan though, because just thinking about him, it really makes me angry at the moment, because again, I'm only 2 days removed from the episode, but the feelings are still there. I still feel angry towards him, and I know whenever I see him on screen, him and that fucking Dwight, just Dwight's face annoys me. So I know Dwight and Negan need to die. I don't expect Negan to die anytime soon, but I'm hoping, because Dwight is a side character, that he gets the chopping block pretty soon, especially because of this really stupid vendetta he's got against Daryl. When Daryl saved his life, it's ridiculous, If anyone, Daryl should have the vendetta, and he has now, but he nicked Daryl's bike, he left him stranded even though Daryl saved him, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. While we're on the topic of Daryl as well, I should probably mention that punch. The punch to Negan, which, let's be honest, cost Glenn his life. Whether Negan would have killed someone else, I don't know. I do think it was a direct reaction to what Daryl did. And there's the big question, do I blame Daryl? And I've heard a lot of people do. Understandably so, but for me personally, I don't blame Daryl, because what Daryl did is very much in character for him. I always say it, Daryl is rash. Daryl does stuff, he just lashes out. He always has. And for Daryl to lash out, does that make it right? No, but it's something I expect from that character. What triggered it was after Abraham had been killed, Negan was waving a bat in Rosita's face and winding her up, basically showing her Abraham's brains because he saw she cared for him. And I think something in Daryl snapped, because he's very much a person that acts on his emotions. He doesn't always think about what he's doing, which, is a flaw in his character, but I've got to be honest, I'm sometimes like that as well. You probably saw actually in the reaction, when Daryl did lash out, I had an emotional response as well. I had an outburst, because I felt like in that moment, that punch to Negan was very much deserved. But with hindsight, which is 2020, it cost Glenn his life. Daryl wasn't to know that. I mean, they got the warning, but in the emotion of it all, in the tension of it all, that warning got lost, because it got lost on me. In that split second where Daryl did that, I'd completely forgot about the warning. And I was happy that Daryl did that. But as far as blaming Daryl, I don't blame Daryl. It cost Glenn his life, yes. But in the emotion of it all, knowing Daryl's character, it's just a shitty circumstance. And in all honesty, Negan's to blame. Negan's the one that put everyone in that situation. Negan's the one that is ultimately the executioner in the situation. He's judge, jury and executioner. So he could have done something else. He could have, beat up Daryl. He could have done something like that. He could have killed Daryl. If Daryl had done that, then he had killed Daryl. I would have been okay with it as well, because Daryl made his decision in that moment. It just comes back to this Negan playing games. Instead of killing Daryl for his action, he killed someone close to Daryl in order to fuck with Daryl's mind. And he's just a nasty piece of work, Negan. And I blame him for Glenn's death. I don't blame Daryl. It was a silly thing to do, yes, but in the emotion of it all, in the extreme emotion of it all, I feel like the warning got lost, and Unfortunately, Daryl acted how he's always acted. So I guess the big question going forward is, where do we go from here? Where does Alexandria go from here? Where does Rick go from here? Because he was broke. Is he ever going to be the same leader again? I don't know. I mean, we saw Maggie at the end there when she said we need to get back to Alexandria because we need to fight Negan. She still has the fight in her, despite witnessing Glenn get killed. But then again, you could argue that Glenn getting killed made her so she's got nothing left to lose. So why shouldn't she want to go fight Negan? But I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't. This is the first time in the show I'm at a complete loss because, I mean, I suppose people could talk to Rick, get him to change his mind and get him to fight Negan. But like I say, I honestly feel like Rick was broke. I don't know if he's ever going to have the same guile again. He's going to have the same confidence. If he's ever going to be able to dream big again. Dream of a future for, Team Fam and everyone. It was really hard to watch that. It was so hard to watch Rick get broken down in that way. But I've just got to see now where he goes. Like I say, I just hope that maybe they pay Negan for the first couple of weeks. Try and get some affairs in order. Try and get some sort of escape plan. And maybe try and fight him. I don't know if that's going to happen though. Because I feel like it's going to take a lot of time for our group to recover from the trauma of it all. You can't go from that kind of trauma straight to fighting. Unless I feel like it's all in the same day. Because Negan has done it and now he's given time to think about it. And they're all going to be mourning. They're all just going to be devastated. And they're all just going to be weak and depressed. Let's be honest. I mean, the people at Alexandria that didn't witness it got away lightly. I mean, Gabe, he should be counting his lucky stars that he stayed behind. Because if he had witnessed that, I don't know if that character would have survived. Because he is very godly. Even though we've seen him turn a corner lately in terms of killing people. We saw him kill that one guy in the field, the Saviour. I still feel like something like that would really shake his faith again. And it would really cause him pause for thought. So what's going to happen to Alexandria from here? I don't know. What's Rick going to do? I don't know. I guess Maggie's going to go to the hilltop, try and get her baby sorted, find out what's wrong. I've got my fingers crossed the baby survives, but, I'm preparing for the worst because she was in a lot of pain. And then she was on her knees all night dealing with that. And then she had the whole trauma thing with Glenn, which can't help the baby. And I just hope that Maggie's able to pull through it all. But I just hope our group can recover. That's the big thing. I hope they're able to recover because, it took a lot of time after Terminus for them to get themselves together, get organised, and actually have some semblance of a normal life again. But this is The Walking Dead. There is no easy life. There's always going to be trials. There's always going to be tribulations. And I guess it's going to be a continual story of our group overcoming the odds. So let's just hope that Negan and the Saviours are some odds that they can overcome. So I'm going to leave that there. Like I say, an amazing episode with some hindsight. I can enjoy it even though the deaths are still very raw to me. We've been introduced to a villain which I hate, but the best villains I'm always going to hate, and that's what makes them so good. So got a good villain, traumatic episode, but a good episode, plenty of emotion, which you always want from a TV show. And I guess we just have to wait to find out what happens next. So until the next episode, guys and girls, thank you for watching as always, and until next time, bye bye. Thank you for watching The Walking Dead Weekend with me. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up because it helps me and it helps the channel grow. Also, if you've got any thoughts or theories about the episode, remember you can leave them in the comments section below. But please, no spoilers. If you'd like to support me even more than you do now, you can find me on Patreon, where for as little as $1 a month you can take part in Patreon polls or even get early access to my videos. And finally, if you want to keep up to date with the channel, you can find me on Twitter at TVandMeReacts, or you can subscribe.